People looking for a glimmer of hope on jobs found something to grab onto this week. The economy added 120,000 jobs in November, and unemployment dipped to 8.6%, the lowest level in 2 years. It's good news, but the numbers don't tell the whole story. And for that, let's bring back our roundtable. George Will, Arianna Huffington, Major Garrett, and Donna Brazile. Donna, it must be great news for your team.
Oh, it's wonderful.
Can you sail all the way to the election?
But no one is popping champagne, because the president and the Democrats are still trying to get the Congress to pass the jobs bill. They're still trying to do everything in his executive power to get jobs created all across the country. So they're excited about it, yes, but nobody's popping the champagne.
2 points. It's a great headline, and it's very good for the president. But 315,000 Americans left the workforce, okay? They go so discouraged about their limited or non-existent job prospects, they dropped out. That's why you saw this 0.4% drop from 98.6%. One statistic I'm obsessed about in our economic difficulties, labor force participation rate. That's people working and people looking for work. In the Obama presidency, it's dropped 1.7%, from 65.7 to 64%. It dropped 1.2% in the entire 8 years of the Bush presidency. We have a structural problem, not only of unemployment, but discouragement about finding employment. That is a real problem.
But as you said, politically, it is an important trend. It's an important dip.
I don't really think it is. I think Democrats are really fooling themselves if they think this is wonderful news, because that's not what people are experiencing. The truth is, another number that I'm obsessed with, that only 7% of the people who have found jobs since the financial crisis have found jobs at the level of the job they had lost, let alone better. So that means that the jobs that people are getting are low-paying jobs. They're not the kind of jobs that will keep people in the middle class. And what is happening right now is that people are dropping out of the middle class into poverty. And that's really a major factor that's going to affect the Democrats in this election.
And George, one of the main factors that's going to affect it could be Angela Merkel and the people in Europe. I mean, I know it doesn't get talked about much, but certainly the White House must be sweating bullets over what's happening in Europe, because that could affect the economy here.
The president has already shifted his alibi machine from George W. Bush caused my problems to the European Central Bank. People know who George W. Bush was. No one in America knows what the European Central Bank is or does. But he's right in the sense that what economists call an exogenous shock, which would be the default of Greece, contagion to Portugal, Spain, Italy, something else, is far more important than this. And just one more bit of rain on this parade, 50,000 of those new jobs were retail jobs, probably seasonal, hired for the Christmas season. All that said, I disagree with Arianna. If the trend is good in 2012, as it was for Ronald Reagan, where unemployment started under him at 10.8%, Ronald Reagan rode that rising tide of good news to 49 state wins.
But Ronald Reagan could ask the question, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? And Barack Obama cannot ask that question and expect an answer yes. And that's really the fundamental problem.
But he can go to the American people and say, do you want to go back to the policies that led us to this deep recession? And do you want to go back to a political party that, in the midst of a recession, would not lift a hand to help the middle class?
And Tim Geithner, Treasury Secretary, has been back and forth to Europe, again to harp on this, because it is America's biggest market, Europe, and obviously this is where the fear is coming from. What can, if anything, the president do, or the administration do, to mitigate what's happening there?
Well, Sarkozy and Merkel will be meeting tomorrow. Hopefully they will come up with policies that will strengthen the euro.
They want to rewrite treaties.
But how much, what's left in our toolbox? The Feds have already.
There's one mechanism. The European Central Bank could use the IMF as a means by which to push funding through, so then the Europeans would feel that it's the IMF and its disciplinary focus, not the European Central Bank, meaning the Germans, who are imposing new fiscal discipline and supervisorial and punishment powers all throughout the Eurozone. If that in fact happened, it's been proposed, if that happens, that could be something the United States could do. We are the largest donor nation of the IMF, 17%. There's $390 billion available from the IMF to loan to Europe. That's not nearly enough, but if the European Central Bank adds its resources to that, pushes it through the IMF, that could solve the problem.
But just wait until that gets cast in the political
Right,
debate.
I was
As
gonna say.
Americans
Yes, of course.
bailing
Who's
out
going to
the
be
Europeans.
loaning to the
Which might be an economically wise
Which
thing to do,
brings
but
us
politically
to-
has no validity whatsoever.
Yeah.
Ron Paul. We didn't talk about Ron Paul. He is
We did. I
second.
mentioned that
You
he
did.
was.
We
I
want to
mentioned that
carry
he's
on.
a factor in Iowa.
Yeah.
And don't forget about it.
18% is number 2 in the Des Moines Register poll. Where do you think that that's going to take him?
He has an organization. I like Newt Gingrich, who I mentioned. Newt Gingrich is full of ideas. He's full of platitudes and sound bites. But Ron Paul has an organization in all these key early states. His base is enthusiastic, and they will come out and support him.
He has a low ceiling, but an absolutely solid floor. And on Friday, on Neil Cavuto's show on Fox News, he was asked, might you run as a third-party candidate? He says, I'm not thinking about that. I'm doing pretty well. Now, that is a studied and excellent non-denial. The fact is he has the infrastructure in place to re-elect Mr. Obama.
But you know, already Newt Gingrich has been announcing new precinct captains in South Carolina. The chances are that Herman Cain's operation is going to move to Newt Gingrich. That's the expectation. Newt Gingrich created GOPAC. Newt Gingrich put together the Contract for America. It's not like he can't organize. You know, the idea that somehow Newt Gingrich is just full of ideas but he can't organize. Just listen to all the members of Congress, including John Boehner, who got into politics because of Newt Gingrich's organization and his little tapes that he was sending everybody to listen as they were driving around. So if
It's this excitement idea dynamic I was talking about earlier. It can take hold. I've seen it before.
But you know, I'm an organizer, not a community organizer, but an organizer, an old school organizer at that. But you have to get on the ballot in all of these states, and Newt has already missed one deadline in Missouri. Granted, it's not a binding primary with delegates, but in order to win the nomination, you got to get delegates. Therefore, you have to go out and get petitions. So can he do it over the next couple of weeks? Perhaps.